It's another Aggie Sports Zoom Hangout with the Eagle. I'm Travis Brown with the Eagle. Of course, on here, as always, we have Robert Cessna of the Eagle and Alex Miller, who we sometimes let out of his cage to be on some of these things. But more importantly, the most important guy that we have on this week hanging out with us is the great voice of the Aggies, Andrew Monaco. Andrew, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time.
You read that introduction perfectly. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go. So let's jump right into it. We got football, another little week off. I know we had one of these before the season started when we talked with you and kind of led into the season. You have a little bit more of an inside look on the COVID protocols, the testing, how this all goes on. Now that we're a game away from the end of a mostly completed regular season, how surprised are you or not surprised that we made it this far and that we got football this fall?
I'm not surprised, and I think all the credit goes to the student athletes. Their diligence, their responsibility, their sacrifices, to tell you the truth, all because their goal was to play this season, to play it as safely as possible, and they put themselves in this position. If it weren't, I would have to say, if it weren't for the contact tracing, which is part of the safety protocol, please don't get me wrong, it's not like a ton of players came down with this, and that's what knocked them out. The contact tracing kind of did that. But to me, and what you had players at the end of practices, if they had a long weekend, if it was a bye week, reminding one another, hey, let's be smart. We want to continue to play. And then I think as this season became more and more special, they realized, we don't want to give this up. So keep that diligence. But really, I give all the credit to the student athletes for what they've done. Am I surprised? No, because I think the SEC really showed everybody you can have patience. You can read whatever data is out there. They didn't jump the gun like the Big Ten and then the Pac-12 joining along with that. Let this play out, move the season, change their schedule, added a week to a championship week. I think there was a flexibility there as well that allowed us to get through all of these games and through this season.
Have you kept count how many Q-tips you've gotten up your nose this fall?
No, I've lost count, unfortunately. But I do know the very first one, maybe I should have or should not have had this, but the doctor, and I was like, oh, please be gentle with me. I think it was the fear more than anything else when it came to that. Like, I don't want you touching my brain. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. The folks who administer those, and we're doing them again for basketball, the folks who are administering those have been just outstanding.
Great.
Do you get tested just for the road games or for home games every week?
For football, since we are separate, we don't Dave and I and our engineer Kevin Menchow do not travel with the team. So we are separate. For basketball, it is part of that protocol. You have to be negative, and the tests are within 72 hours of each game. Not just us; it's the game staff as well. But we were just making sure we were safe because flying commercially, you want to make sure that you're not bringing anything into that. Staying at the team hotel, but we are traveling separately this season.
So go ahead, Travis.
No, well, go ahead, Cease.
Yeah, get right to it. This winning streak. How much fun has this been? Any game you like more than the others? It's a lot of fun for us as the media. People don't realize it. When you win, when the team wins, everybody kind of wins. They want to read your stuff. They want to do it. Everybody's talking football. It's been a while since it's been this pleasant around here for that long time.
See, so the opportunity that I've had in past working with teams, and you can watch teams grow, and I think we've seen that. I think we've watched this team learn how to win. It almost seems as if every week becomes even more impressive. I was interested in, and I asked Jimbo this during his coach's show. I asked him, looking back during the 2 weeks we did not play, Florida seems to be the game that changed the narrative, but I asked him if the turning point was not Alabama. And the reason why I said that is Aggies fall behind 14-0 in that game, tie it at 14. And Dave Elmendorf, during one of the breaks, turns to me and says, does this team know how good they are? Jimbo then said that's what he asked his coaches, and that's what he asked the players. And then to march right back out on that Saturday and match Florida And then the turnaround was the 2 long drives on the ground where they shrunk that game. Florida was not going to get as many possessions. But then the test was, what are you going to do when you go on the road against – we didn't know how good or bad Mississippi State was, but we knew that Starkville was a place where dreams went to die for A&M, and they played a good road game. And we also saw an answering touchdown, and we started to see the identity of this team. The fluky – when I say fluky pick six, the deflection that gets turned in what is a 2-score game becomes a 1-score game, and then Kellen hits Chase Lane for 52 yards. That answer, they took control. Arkansas came in, and everybody's talking about Arkansas. The Aggie offense was really on a roll. Defense could have been better, Joe said. South Carolina was the most impressive win. Then what are you going to do after everything gets shut down? They come back. LSU, the offense isn't as good as you want, but the defense was fantastic in that game. And your next test becomes Auburn. That's why I say each week I think you learn a little bit more. It was good to see this offensive line take responsibility for LSU, to have Ryan McCollum say, we were frustrated and disappointed because Jimbo was counting on us and kept asking us to get that run game going. And then to see them rush for 300 yards on the road against that Auburn defense. But any SEC road win is impressive. I think watching this team believe, the confidence that they've had, that's what's been as enjoyable as anything else this season.
Is there a player that has stood out to you that has impressed you the most this season? And that could be A, on the field, but B, you have these conversations and get to talk to some of these guys and maybe someone too off the field that has impressed you more this season than you would have expected in years past.
I've always enjoyed talking to Buddy Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the leadership of Buddy. I love to see who really takes that step and who's that voice of authority, if you will. Like that team has to answer to him on that practice field. Keldrick Harper this last weekend was the one who was vocal on the sidelines for this defense to adjust. Isaiah Spiller has been impressive to go from it literally was baptism by fire last year when Ja'Shawn Corbin went down. He's not the same running back. He's not even close. He's become one of the best in the SEC, and by saying that means that you are in elite company. And I really didn't understand it until Jimbo explained on one of his shows when young running backs can run between the tackles. And the reason why he said that, when you're in high school and you're faster than everybody else, more athletic than everybody else, you have this tendency to bounce outside and then just turn the corner and outrace everybody. It's not going to happen in the SEC. It's not like you're going to get caught by a safety. You're not going to always get caught by a linebacker. We know on the A&M side, it might be DeMarvin Leal. That might be a D lineman who's going to catch you. So you can't do that. It's that patience. But I think it works hand in hand with that offensive line. By the time Isaiah is getting to the line, I thought this was the case in Auburn, he already has a 2-yard gain or a 3-yard gain because the offense is winning that battle against the defensive line. I'm also impressed with Ainias Smith. I mean, to put him in whatever role they need, slot, receiver, and I love seeing Devon Achane. I've been impressed the depth and the talent of these running backs. And I don't think we can discount the confidence, giving Kellen Mond time, the decision-making by Kellen, the way he bounced back after LSU. The line came together beautifully, and that's just all contributed. But I would love to say obviously I'm not saying just one, but I think that's the reason for the success is because this team has really come together and each position really solidified with not just depth, but they have the talent now to compete and succeed in the SEC.
You think it's going to be easier to handle this unexpected break since they had the 2 weeks before, 2 games they lost before, and they maybe know how to deal with it, even though they don't want to, but be ready for Tennessee next week a little bit better than maybe they were for LSU?
Yes, because I think this seems like a more normal bye week. The 2 weeks, they just weren't together because of the contact tracing. There were fewer of them. You had positions that were fine, and they could practice. But I think because they're all together, they deal with this as a bye week. And when I say the end is near, not that they're going to relax, but they know, okay, one more game, and if we control what we can control and win that one, we put ourselves in position. So I think having that goal in mind, but I think it's closer to a bye week than it was the uncertainty of those 2 weeks, that the Ole Miss and the Tennessee week back in November.
I want to shift to you a little bit on this. You talk to the players a lot. When they go to these road venues, they have reduced crowds. You can't necessarily hear the crowds getting involved or the celebrations after big plays. And then they talk about having to bring their own energy. Do you as a broadcaster feel like you've had to kind of bring your own energy a little bit more this year when you might not have been able to hear the crowds, hear the roar, have the pomp and circumstance and the fanfare that goes along with college football?
I was worried before the season started that would be the case. And then even that first week in Vanderbilt, even though it was 25% at Kyle Field, I think there was enough of the reaction. And it's not 100,000. I get it, but they tried. So there were those moments. And I think we forget as broadcasters that before you go into a game, you hope it happens, but you get so caught up on the performances on the field. And I think that's the energy to see Leon O'Neal interception, or to see what Damani's doing, or Buddy or DeMarvin Leal making a tackle, or a bomb to Caleb Chapman, the long pass. That, I think, is the energy. So I thought, hey, what is this going to be like, especially at Kyle Field? Was thinking, my first thought was, would it be almost like a spring game? But there was way more energy and the intensity, and obviously it means a lot more than that. And again, the 25% were cheering, maybe 4 times as loud so they could make up for their friends. And I think it was the people who really wanted to be there. But it was a concern, Travis. I was like, okay, could we do this? But it just seems like the performances on the field, you kind of want to live up to those as well. And there have been plenty of those for the Aggies this season.
Well, I mean, as Dan Mullen said, it was 50,000 against Florida. So,
Obviously, so 25,000 in Kyle Field equals 90,000 at Ben Hill Griffith Stadium, right? Is that the math that we're doing, right? Because if he wanted the full crowd, we didn't, plus you had the students right behind that Florida bench, and they were going to bring it. I figure it just says everything you need to say about Kyle Field. You can cut it to a quarter, and they're going to make just as much noise as anywhere else.
It's a fun time as a media person, because if, let's say, A&M doesn't make the college football playoff, which they have a chance to. So does Andrew want to go to Dallas in the Cotton Bowl, or do you want to go to Miami in the Orange Bowl?
Yes, absolutely.
Either one. Yeah, I got you.
Now you're a New Year's team. But I think more than anything is, I don't think this is a one-off. I think this is where Jimbo has wanted this team to be, and now you continue to be in the conversation year after year. They have – when I said change the narrative in the win over Florida, they went from an underdog. They're no longer the underdog. Now they're going to be hunted. Now this is going to be a different mantle that they're going to wear. But I want to get to the point that everybody else is bored that A&M's in the conversation. I want them to be the Alabama and the Clemsons of, they're in there every single year. Yeah, that's what you want to be. But you have to learn to take everybody's best shot. You're learning to be the marquee team on a schedule. And that may come more next year. But I really think this is the combination of the experience of the leadership and I dare say the ownership of this team. I think the players have taken an ownership of this culture, but also with the recruiting and the talent and the depth that is coming in. I think that trajectory. We talked about having to build the foundation in the early part of Jimbo Fisher. I think that foundation is there. That was built the right way. And now you just keep building on that by bringing in an outstanding recruiting class and bringing in the right players who are coming here not for themselves, but for how good A&M can be. And whether it's been the Gig 'em Gang or whatever they're calling themselves, players are recruiting players to be a part of something special. You don't want to flame out and do this just 1 year. That's not what you want. You want this lasting success, and I think that's being built here. I really do.
Here's the real question when it comes to bowl game selection. Does the radio broadcast team get in on the bowl gifts?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Of course they do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and hospitality suites. Let's be honest, what becomes most important in all of this, right? Now we're getting selfish, right? I think
I know. Go ahead.
So I was just saying, you put yourself in that New Year's conversation. That's a special conversation. You want to be one of the top 4. I get it. Control what you can control. it's like a golfer who posts the lowest score in the clubhouse. If someone else shoots something, I'll echo what Jimbo said on Monday. It becomes the opinion. But everything becomes moot if the biggest if next Saturday is if they don't win, everything's done. You can only control what you can control. Win that game and see if that stacks up. But like I said, it can't be just for 2020. You have to keep on doing this year after year.
I'm an avid listener of the Jimbo Fisher radio show, as you well know. Is there a sport – I want to say maybe hockey, but I could be wrong. Is there a sport that Jimbo has not made an allusion to in regards to talking about
hockey.
Football?
Yeah, I think it's hockey.
Because he went golf this week, and I think golf was the first time I've heard golf.
No, he actually did golf before because I know Jack Nicklaus's grandson played for him as a tight end, and then that got him on Nicklaus, right? And Tiger, he'll talk about that. See, Jimbo prizes excellence not because it's easy to love the most popular person. He prizes what it takes to separate the great players from not just good players, but why are you on that pantheon? I think he absolutely appreciates that. We have baseball. Let's see. I'm sure he's brought up swimming in the past. But it's also funny because we got in a conversation about young players, young athletes playing just one sport as opposed to being a multi-sport athlete. He prizes that multi-sport athlete. I thought originally it was going to be, because your brain works when you're playing baseball and the decisions that you have to make, or track, or whatever you're doing, wrestling. If you're an offensive lineman, they always tell you want to get that leverage, go wrestle in your off season. Jimbo said, how do you deal with failure? I want to see how you deal with failure. And plus there's that muscle fatigue and all that. But he likes that well-rounded to do all of that. He thinks that really helps. And it's a fascinating hour. It really is. I can't tell you how much I enjoy that because it's not – look, he's a guy who could talk ball the entire hour if you wanted to. And we've done that. But you learn so much. But then when it's into life lessons and the other part, that becomes fascinating. So when he goes off on Jerry Rice, I have learned keep my mouth shut because I can't say anything better than what he's saying right now. In fact, my wife will text me and say, don't you dare say a word. Let him keep going. So I have learned that for sure.
Hey, what about current news? What do you think about the ESPN getting the SEC football and basketball? I don't know if you're a CBS old-time Lois guy. What do you think about that news yesterday?
We kind of heard that this was going to happen when you're, to drop the old line of in the industry. We knew this was going to happen. And, the breaking news, I was surprised it was that announcement because we kind of knew this was going to happen. Whether CBS is going to get a buyout from ESPN in any of these 3 years to the conclusion. I love the SEC on CBS because I love that Saturday game in its own window has a production of their best Sunday NFL game. And I think CBS is going to regret this. I'm not going to lie. I think they're going to miss that window. I really do. And I don't know. I don't know if ESPN in these COVID times has enough revenue to buy out CBS in any of these 3 years before the contract ends. I don't know if CBS paying $55 million each season can generate the revenue in these next 3 seasons. Will the advertisers be ponying up the money? I wouldn't give up the contract until I absolutely have to. You would have to overwhelm me with money. And then what's next for CBS? Because to me, this seems like when CBS lost the NFC to Fox, CBS miscalculated that Fox was going to not only be a player, but that they would be shut out. They eventually got the AFC back, but they didn't. They were lost there for a while in the mid-90s. Do they go after, is this all because of a run for the NFL for them? Will they go after a Monday night package as well? Will they align themselves? I don't think any conference deal is up between now and 2024. It's not like they can go out and get the Big Ten. They've struck their deals. Does the Mountain West do anything for them? I don't think it does. My fear, I shouldn't say fear, my worry with ESPN, it doesn't become exclusive any longer. Are we just one of many? Now, don't get me wrong. The money aspect's great for all the 14 schools. Mm-hmm. But I miss the exclusivity. I will miss the exclusivity. For me, being my age and growing up, Keith Jackson, the voice of college football. And then Vern Lundquist. What Vern did was outstanding. And without him and Todd Blackledge, maybe more importantly, that production that CBS put into it, I think it's something they have to be really proud. I would have gone back to the SEC. I guess hindsight's 2020. I would have liked to have the last bid, not the first. But what took CBS so long to re-up on this? And I think the conference, that may have been a little bit of a sore point. Like, okay, understanding that you can, for the life of this contract, but what are you waiting for? Can we work together? So CBS gave the first bid. ESPN wanted it this badly. They outbid CBS. I just wonder if CBS knows what's next, because back in the early 90s, I'm not sure they knew what was next. And that was the problem of sports and entertainment and news at that time. They weren't working in tandem at that time. So I don't know. I just hope it doesn't get lost through all the properties that ESPN has on a Saturday.
2024 is going to be an interesting year because you look at, I believe that's when the Big 12's contract is up as well. You have ACC, who is a ESPN property as well. So will the CBS maybe go after – CBS may be going after the Big 12, who right now, when you look at how this is all going to be, is going to be buried underneath all the content on ESPN. Could that save the conference with a big TV deal? I don't know. Let's move on.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Alex, I know for everyone who's watching us on Facebook Live right now, thank you. If you have any questions or comments, you can fire those in. I think we have one real quick. Alex, what do you got?
Yeah, we got a question for Andrew. Andrew, we've been on these Zooms doing a year of nostalgia, and we've got a question. What's your favorite broadcasting memory? Maybe it's a time here at A&M. Maybe it's somewhere else along your journey.
Let's see. The one that it's going to be hard to forget is my first TV game. I couldn't get my left leg to stop shaking. I honestly couldn't. That was the nerves of that. Broadcasting, it's very tough to top LSU, to be honest with you, a 7 overtime game. That would be very difficult. For me, the milestones of first TV, first radio, first time on a network, first time working for CBS, working those types of things, that becomes really personal, and those are milestones for me. But the LSU, and I think how to cap a first season being here really is something special.
Let's go ahead and take that opportunity to shift gears a little bit. Let's go men's basketball, because I know that's gearing up, and big game this weekend in Fort Worth at Dickies Arena against TCU. First Power 5 test for the Aggies. Andrew, this is a team that holds all of the tenets of what we saw Buzz Williams putting into the program last year, but without Josh Neba, without the defense and the cohesiveness of Wendell Mitchell. It's a team that is going to look and has looked pretty different on the court. What's been your take so far through these first couple games about where this team is and how this team looks compared to what Buzz showed us last year?
What a difference a year makes. Everything was new to everybody last year. Now, all the returning players can tell Hassan Diarra, Hayden Hefner, LaDamian Bradford, Jackson Robinson, here's what you can expect from boot camp, from practice, from shoot around, from a game. You also notice they're a lot stronger this year than they were last year. I think the weight lift, to lift 4 times a week and then continue to do that in your off season, they look stronger. And I think more confident, because I think there's more of an understanding of what they want on the defensive end, how everything is, for lack of a better phrase, on a string. It's not 5 individuals playing defense. It's 5 on a string. And I think they understand the offensive concept a little bit more. They understand the whiteboard stats that Buzz brings out. I think that just the understanding of what they are responsible for. Now, what doesn't change is you've got to bring unabashed effort every single time. And Buzz has said that before the game tomorrow against TCU. The effort has to be better. They have to value the basketball a lot more. They've got to finish defensive possessions. Look, we're going to hear that all season long. Is it going to be enough? There's also a gratitude that they are playing, because for a while it was in doubt if they were going to play at all. And I think he wants them to make sure that you do not let this opportunity go by. But you're just seeing guys taking that next step from their first year to their second year. And look, the first 3 games last year, we didn't know how many games they were going to win. That's why I'd said before, to watch a team grow, where they started to where they finished. They seem to have picked up where they left off, and maybe even a little better there. But obviously their first test really comes against a Power 5 opponent like TCU.
I think we've seen so far how important Emmanuel Miller is to this team, especially with losing Josh Nebo and needing some rebounding presence. He seems to be like he's going to be a real key player this year and a good leader.
I think he has a chance to be special. I really do. I mean, you look, he changed his body a little bit. He changed his shooting, much more consistent from the line in this early going, getting to the line. I understand what Buzz said earlier this week. I don't know if he's a go-to guy, but talking with Buzz every single time, paint touches are important for this team. And he's a guy who can get those paint touches. I think that, the untapped, I just think he's going to continue to get better. I think there is that effort. He has been asked a couple times in practice, are you giving enough effort? His answer has been no, and then change that effort on the practice floor because he knows. And I like the point you made, Travis, about the leader. I don't think he's afraid to put his arm around somebody's shoulder and say, this is what we need to do. If you notice during timeouts, they call their own play. And if Savion's not on the floor, Savion's always going to inbound the basketball. It then becomes Emmanuel Miller. And if neither of those are on the floor, believe it or not, it becomes Hayden Hefner. Now, that gets to basketball IQ. But to your point, that responsibility of calling out that play and running that play, that's a big change from last year for E-Man. And as for their bigs, I wonder if we start looking at the bigs. It's brand new for Marfo, and in a way, it's new. The minutes are going to be new for Jonathan Aku, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Do we kind of start looking at them? Do you put those numbers together, and that's a combination 5? And do we do that with the point guards, that plural of Hassan and Andre Gordon, although Gordon is playing with some confidence as well. But those new guys are going to have to transition. They looked better than they ever looked in that third game. Lord knows against Kevin Samuel, they're really going to be tested by not just an offensive player, but a very good defensive player and a shot blocker against the Horned Frogs. That's for sure.
Andrew, in that first game, Quentin Jackson had a really good game, and then the last 2 games, E-Man's kind of been the guy that has stood out. Andre had a really good game on Sunday too, but it seems to me that Savion has just been the glue of the team. And it seemed like last week, even though he dealt with some foul trouble, he was a really key facilitator on offense. I know Hassan got the start and Andre kind of ran the point, but everything seemed to go through Savion in that offense.
Really good passer. He's developed into that. I still go back, it's funny, Alex. I go back to the game, even though they lost it at Gonzaga 3 years ago. Savion initiated that offense, brought the ball into the front court. I remember asking Billy Kennedy, that's something when you have a 6'7" guy initiating that offense. And then you could see some of that confidence and the vision of Savion Flagg. I want to say he had 7 assists in this most recent game. I think 3 came off inbounds for him. But the passing, the rebounding, taking the right shot for him, I just think the game is more complete. And I thought he said something very interesting before this season. He always thought he worked hard. Last year, he realized what he thought was working hard was nowhere near how hard he has to work under Buzz Williams. But I'm with you. I think his game is way more complete. I think this is a team that I don't think there's going to be one person who will carry them, although it seemed like Q did in that first game, and it seemed like E-Man did. They fed him. But I think there's always going to be a complementary player, like you said, with Andre Gordon. And there's always going to have to be Savion to do that. I think this team's always going to have that team concept that if you shut one guy down, you're not going to totally dismantle this team. There's going to be someone else that they will find another way to beat you. And I think once they complement one another, I think that shows that they're a true team, and that's how they're going to have success on the floor.
I'm going to put you vaguely on the spot. What do you see as the ceiling for this men's basketball team? I think we would have never guessed at what the ceiling would have been last year and what they actually were able to achieve. What do you see as the ceiling for this team?
I'll take you back to last year that this team was like 6-6. Like they got to 6 wins. I said to Dr. Thornton, I was like, everything from here is gravy. And they kept adding to gravy, right? They got to 10-8. And I just think it's with that confidence. I'm interested to see how everybody is in this conference. Look, when the preseason rankings came out and this team was 11 or 12, you saw on social media Savion and Q going back and forth saying, oh, no one believes in us. Like, I think there's that little chip on their shoulder. And I truly believe last year, I think the coaches kept telling their players, whoever A&M was playing, boy, when you're playing a Buzz Williams team, you better be ready for it. I'm not sure the players understood that. And I'm not saying look past. I'm not sure they thought that they were going to be this good. So the ceiling for them, you know, they were 7th last year, right? You don't want to play on Wednesday in the SEC tournament. You want to keep going with that confidence. I would love to see them build on 10-8. Again, I don't know. I don't know how deep this is. I'm not sure what COVID's going to do to some teams. You see Kentucky struggle early in non-conference, but I think that plays right into John Calipari's hands. That's the way he has to stay on his team. They're always ready, you know, come conference time. Ceiling, I think, would be not playing on that Wednesday, have a favorable matchup on that Thursday, and have a shot at winning this conference tournament. I think you build off what you did last year. I think if you can be better than you were last year or as good as last year, and then finally get to play in Nashville, that would be fun because they had the confidence. I don't know if they beat Missouri. I just don't. It's hard to beat someone 3 times. They sure had the confidence going in, and I see that confidence building a little earlier this season. That's for sure.
I'm going to let Cease get the last word if he has anything on this, but I have one more question, and it's shifting back to football, and it's the question that every A&M fan wants to know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope you can provide the answer.
Every is a big word.
What's with the eyeball emojis?
I don't know. I'm with you. I don't know. I don't know. And then didn't Ross send one out to the conference?
Yes, the conference sent one out. Like
yeah.
I'm sure this is the biggest troll job history of A&M athletics. But
I wonder if they thought that we were going to meet somewhere between here and Columbus, Ohio, and just play.
Yeah.
Because it was the equipment truck was one of the pictures, wasn't it?
Right, but then there were some internet sleuths that figured out that was a picture from last year or something like that.
Well, you guys know that truck parks the same place every single week. It's not
yes.
like that moves. No, I don't know what those eyeball emojis are. You know what I'm a little disappointed in? No one asked Buddy about his jacket on Monday during the media availability.
Okay.
He wanted to be asked about that jacket. I was going to ask one from the back of the room because Dave Elmendorf and I are in the back of that room. And I was like, Buddy, I'll ask that question, but that would have been a bad look. Like if he starts taking questions, you guys would get all mad that we're in the back there in our masks and all that. But he wanted to be asked about his jacket.
Okay.
So
we'll remember that.
I guess my last question is I'm looking forward. I've never been to Knoxville. You been to Knoxville, Andrew?
Yeah, as a minor league broadcaster in the Southern League, taking on the Knoxville Smokies. Our team, Ron Gardenhire was the manager, and Knoxville's team hotel was right next to campus. So you better believe that the players were not focused on the game. They were focused on every co-ed on that campus. Snuck into Neyland Stadium, snuck into Thompson Bowling Arena. Obviously we go there for basketball. Did it, could we get in? And we found like an open gate and we walked in there, and one of the pitchers was from Chattanooga. So, but we figured, what are they going to do? Just yell at us and kick us out. So really looking forward. At some point, I'd like to go on one of those boats on the river before the game. If there would be a way to pregame on the Knoxville River, I would love to be able to be part of that tradition.
Just Zoom the broadcast from a boat.
Hey! You know what? In 2020, that's we've done that for sure.
Yeah. Cease, you got anything else?
Nope. I appreciate your time, Andrew.
Always a pleasure.
Alex, you good?
I'm good. Thanks, Andrew.
You bet.
Well, I'm
Alex.
good too. Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Of course, you can hear all of Andrew's fine work on all of the coaches' shows and during the play-by-play for the men's basketball, football, and adding baseball this year as well.
Yep,
If I'm not mistaken.
absolutely.
So you can hear the vocal stylings of the great Andrew Monaco there.
And if I may tell an inside joke to end this,
Dude.
safe travels back and forth.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it is the land of my, home. So it'll be great. Anyway, thank you so much for Andrew for joining us. Be sure to read the Eagle and check theeagle.com leading up to, no game this week, but a game next week in Tennessee. And we'll be sure to talk to you next week again on an Aggie Sports Zoom Hangout.